Barbary, one of the famous speakers, trainer in the corporate world, and he's also Chief Executive Officer of the Consultants with the K. So, Assalamu alaikum, sir, and how was your experience so far at conference today?
Walaikum assalam, Saira. This is a phenomenal activity, wonderful, great energy, great enthusiasm, wonderful people, great speakers, and I'm very impressed by the way it has been organized. The optics have been created, the sound, recording, and everything. So it is wonderful, really. Good to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so now talking about the theme of this conference, which is future of work, and we have been, listening and talking as well that these are very interesting times. These are VUCA times. This is the era of IR 4.0, disruptive innovation. But what do you think, and what is your opinion and thoughts on this concept? That I think that this VUCA times is more VUCA and challenging for the Generation X and baby boomers, who are mostly sitting at the top leadership of the organizations, rather for the millennials and Generation Z. So what is your opinion about that?
I think one of the settings that we do is millennials and baby boomers and so on and so forth. But I think we forget in this that everything is about attitude. And there could be somebody who's born maybe 10 years ago but still has negative attitudes and is looking for a job where he wants to retire and get pension in the end, and never even for a minute thinks how he or she will contribute and how he or she would use her life. So that's sad in a way. So it is about attitudes. I am a baby boomer, for example. I was born in 51, but I think in my attitude, in my demeanor, in my dressing, and all things, I think I'm a modern person. And I know that anybody who's prepared to give, who's prepared to visualize the future, who is going to participate in adding value, and anybody who has positive attitude will find livelihood. I'm not saying jobs. Job is unimportant anymore, because job means exploitation. Job means that somebody will earn because of me and then give me part of that money that he or she is earning because of me. That's what organizations do. But to be able to really display my talents, I have to be self-employed or work in a collaboration with people in a way where islands are created and similar things are being done by people like you and I are doing right now. It's a collaboration. You have a job and you're collaborating with me. I add value to what your program would be, and so both of us will benefit from this. This is the future of job, actually. This is how the jobs will come now. Because, again, dunya mein na, there are going to be more than 10 billion population in a couple of years. In another 5-6 years, we will be having a 10 billion population. This 10 billion population will need to be served. And people are not going to die as early as they used to die. So there are going to be a lot of older people who will need service, who would need to be taken care of, because we are dignified human beings. And human beings, dignity means we take care of those who are weaker in our society. So jobs will always exist. Work would always exist. Are we willing to do it? And if there is peace and prosperity in the world, everybody will have enough to eat. Everybody would have enough quality of life. So the world is moving in that direction. So I am very hopeful about the future. I'm an optimist anyways.
That's great. So you talked about entrepreneurship, and we also heard a lot of the speakers today. And usually, what we see is that the solutions or the ideal the processes or the practices which are being shared at such kind of conferences, they are more applicable in the larger setups or in MNCs, whereby 80 to 90% of Pakistan's economy is SME-based sector, is more towards the the emerging entrepreneurs and all that, whereby they are more kind of family businesses. So what do you think that professionalism, and that professional leadership, which is at the MNC's level, don't you think that ethical and professional leadership is also required at the SME, so that they can also, develop such kind of processes and, in this digital age?
I think as we move forward, there would be more need of organizational skills, of interpersonal skills, of how making people happy, how work is shared and ownership is taken by more and more people. So those skills would always be required. Positive attitudes, taking care of people, appreciating them, and of course learning, introducing the new tools and learning those tools. But large-scale manufacturing will go over to machines. It will be automatic and automated. But still, the decision maker, the designs that will go in, the needs of the customer that would be fed into that, talking to the customers, delivering service will remain in the domain of human beings. And there would be jobs and opportunities to serve there and improve your own quality of life. You see, the purpose of human being is not to use muscle power. The purpose of human being is to use brain power. Our greatest asset is not my muscles, it is my brain. So brain means I'm more involved in problem solving, designing, analysis, creating designs, and a forecast for the future of how services could be provided and improved. So this jobs are going to be there, but the form of the job will change. You will become everybody will become a consultant. Everybody would have a skill, and their skills will be needed, and their skills would be appreciated as they move forward.
All right, last question, and that I will, you will be free to listen, go in inside the new thoughts. Last question is that, as you know that Pakistan's ranking in Global Innovation Index, Global Competitiveness Index, Global Happiness Index, Global Knowledge Index, somehow it's a very, hitting the bottom line, right? And we know that, to help Pakistan come on all of these rankings high, we really need a national innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem. And what do you think that the only way forward, as I perceive, is that all of these stakeholders, including industry, academia, government, incubators, students, they really need to work together through certain intellectual capital development forums, whereby they can create research of consequence and interventions to really jet back Pakistan and all of these indices?
Very good question. But I'll say, you see, the innovation and transformation is a flood now. So we can either choose to be part of it, or we'll be swept away by it. So all the incubation center, all the stakeholders, they better recognize that they have to be part of it. And if they're not part of it, they will be blown away by this flood that is emerging and going. Because there needs to be generic changes. The change would come automatically. When people are hungry, first they will ask for food, and if they don't get food, then they will fight for food. So similarly, this transformation, positive transformation in our society is also needed. And things are happening very rapidly. Like somebody mentioned earlier, that our telephone infrastructure, landline is not fully established, but it's not even needed now because the cell phone is established. So those telecom companies which went into organizing cell phone systems have survived, others haven't. So this is how the change will come. It's up to us to be part of that change or resist that change. And I think we will emerge out to be part of that change, because we all deserve to have better futures. We all deserve to have our future generations live in harmony, happiness, with great quality of life.
Thank you so much. It was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, now we have Mr. Ali Tasir, who is basically head HR PTC. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and how was your experience so far today at the conference?
Walaikum Assalam. The experience was very enriching. I think the subject matter that we are discussing here today is pertinent to the future of work and quite pertinent for the HR community. And more importantly, I think getting the HR community in Pakistan together to share these ideas is a wonderful practice, and one that should be continued and encouraged.
All right. So now talking about, the theme of this conference, which is future of work. So what do you think? Future of work is a kind of myth, because what we see is that for Generation Z and millennials, it's not that kind of VUCA times, because they are inhabitants of this Industrial Revolution 4.0, whereby if we see Generation X and baby boomers, they are migrants into this IR 4.0. So in my opinion, it's more challenging, for the top leadership and the baby boomers who are sitting on the top leadership of the organizations to really evolve and, manage this VUCA times, because they really have to manage the millennials and Generation Z. So what are your thoughts and opinions on that?
Yeah, look, the future of work, dating back to the Industrial Revolution, then coming into the knowledge economy, and then the technical revolution. That's always been a constant, that's always changing. But the fundamental that we now need to reconcile with is that the exponential nature of change that's coming through quite visibly. And that's the key with the millennials, that they've had a lot more access to information and technology, and the use of that, and their dexterity and familiarity and comfort with technology. So the change is now quite exponential. I think the fundamentals of work do not need to change. The fundamental principles of how we run commerce do not change. I think what does change, however, is how we adapt our leadership style and leadership behaviors to now continue to monitor and continue to develop new strategies to adapt to the exponential nature of change that we're going to experience from here onwards. So technology is going to be at the forefront. Work practices like flexible work hours, working from remote locations, the energy and passion that the young people now bring with a different focus to lifestyle is something that we seriously have to consider adapting to. But the fundamental principles of commerce and trade will continue to be the same. It's just the underlying way in which we do it is going to need a lot more attention and a lot more focus in the coming years.
One more question. As you talk about the knowledge economy, and if we see and study, the reports of the World Economic Forum, we get to know, that countries have really moved from factor-driven to innovation-driven idea economies, whereby Pakistan somehow is really, left behind in all of these areas. But if we see, the point on the basis of which these companies have been able to migrate from factor-driven to innovation-driven idea economies, that was basically, the research of consequence through the collaboration of industry and academia, whereby industry has been putting up projects and they have been innovating and they've been bringing the research projects for the younger generation, and the academia, doing the research and all that, and creating interventions. But now what we see in case of Pakistan, it's more a kind of transit economy, which is more on, import dependent. And a lot of research is not happening in the industry. So what do you think that how Pakistan, and particularly we can motivate industry to, push and create certain research projects whereby real research of consequence can be created, and students and millennials and Generation Z, they can work with harmony with the industry in creating, the research of consequence?
Look, I think you touched on quite a number of points in that statement or that question that you've just asked. I think how to drive innovation in Pakistan, that has a lot to do with macroeconomics. Yeah? And it's directly linked to new ideas, new organizations coming into Pakistan and developing and nurturing and fostering those innovations and ideas. Up until we don't have that environment, I think we will continue to be on the path where we are today. I have a firm belief, and I have had that in the past, I have it today, that the students in Pakistan and the professionals in Pakistan can stack up to anyone in the world and be second to none. Yeah? It's about creating those opportunities for them. Yeah? And I think a lot of innovation, we have a lot of potential for a lot of innovation to come through in Pakistan because we have a very intelligent citizenry. So I think, we need to start investing a lot more in education to begin with. And if we talk about now, that's future generations. And if we talk about now, then we need to create an environment in Pakistan that is very attractive to foreign investors. And if you look at, Pakistanis abroad, they are captains of industry, and they're leaders in their particular fields of discipline, be it, medicine, be it technology, be it learning and development. They're actually at the forefront. So we have the capacity, we have the willingness, we have the intelligent citizenry. We just need the infrastructure to support it.
Thank you so very much. It was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we have Mr. Farkali Iqbal, who is basically the head human resource at EPC Descon. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and how was your experience so far at the conference today?
Walaikum salam, pretty good ji. Allah ka shukar hai ji. The experience has been amazing. I guess we've got to listen to one of the best speakers coming from abroad as well as within Pakistan. So we're really enjoying it, and I guess we are also thinking deep in our hearts in terms of what is the future of work would be. So it's a good experience to be.
All right, now coming towards the theme of this conference, which is the future of work. So what do you see? Because what do you see that is future of work is a kind of myth? And we have been also talking about the VUCA times, that, this is the VUCA times, and Generation Z and millennials, they really need to, evolve themselves and all that. But in my opinion, the Generation X and baby boomers who are usually running, the organizations or the top leadership, it is more challenging for them, instead of for the Generation Z and millennials to, really survive in this VUCA time. So what are your thoughts and opinion on that?
Pretty right, actually. The VUCA times are not actually for the millennials or centennials for that matter. It's actually for them, it's business as usual. The difficulty is for people like us, for example, Generation X, Z, Y, whatever generation you're talking about, because they're actually going through a transition right now. The people who are going to make the future of work or future generations, for them it's business as usual. The speed, the change, the transition for them is very, very normal. So I guess the bigger challenge is for people who are actually from previous generations. How do they cope up with that sort of work? And secondly, the VUCA world is a reality right now, and it's a reality for the last decade or so, which means it would be here and it would accelerate actually, which means that we really need to think in terms of what the work would look like in years to come, in decades to come. And the important thing is those soft skills that most of the speakers have been talking about, they're pretty important in terms of all those collaboration, in terms of managing people, in terms of many of those things which are actually software in nature, not in terms of the technology. So the technology would be there accelerating, but the difficult part or the thing that we really need to adapt to is in terms of the softer side of the human side. Going through that change and then adapting to that change, and then all those generations for the next 10 to 20 years would be interacting with each other. So for millennials, centennials, no issues, I guess. But for us, yes, definitely.
And what do you think to cope and or to mitigate this risk factor or to obsolescence factor with Generation X or baby boomers have right now? The only way forward I see is that they really need to collaborate with the millennials and Generation Z through certain innovation and intellectual capital development initiatives, whereby they can really create some interventions and research of consequence. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, true. Collaboration is one. Secondly, we need to give space to those newer generations so that they actually show their potential and are actually being able to sort of give that sort of synergies to the industry. Secondly, people from the previous generations, they really need to coach those generations in terms of how to go about their careers and their life, because the previous generations actually have that sort of experience. So they can help in that sense, and the centennials or millennials can actually help these generations in terms of getting to the business results. So it's more of a collaboration between the two generations. And as I'm saying right now, it's the previous generation's responsibility to actually guide the new generation in terms of how to pace their careers as well.
Okay, last question. And that is, if we see, the certain reports of World Economic Forum and other, rankings of Pakistan in key critical indices like GII, GCI, and GHI or Global, Knowledge Economy Index, we see that Pakistan is a very low rank, right? And if we see the factors by which the companies or the countries, sorry, they have really moved from factor-driven to innovation-driven idea economies, there was the collaboration of industry and academia, whereby the research opportunities were created for the academia, and they really worked out on that. But if we see Pakistan's scenario, it's more a kind of transit economy, and it's more dependent on imports, whereby industry is not that much motivated or inspired or is not pushed to create research opportunities, and it's not doing actual real research where academia can contribute. So where do you think how important is for this ecosystem to really push and inspire industry to create such research opportunities for academia?
I guess the responsibility should primarily be lying on the industry actually. See, industry actually needs all those skills, all those qualified individuals who can actually contribute to this economy, right? Academia is handicapped in a sense that the curriculum, the sort of teaching methodologies is actually pretty, lagging, I would say. I don't really want to use any harsher words, but they're lagging by design. So the issue is the industry needs to sort of push the academia to produce those skills, those qualities, those capabilities amongst the graduates which they need. Because if you look at academia is actually producing those graduates or giving that product to parents actually or to the students, which I think is good enough for them. But the issue is the industry actually needs something else. So I guess it's the industry's prerogative to push money to fund those innovative programs, I would say. and provide that sort of time to academia instead of just telling them you're not producing good enough candidates or graduates. But actually give time, money, investment to them, because essentially it's a good return on investment. Whatever they're going to invest, they can actually get back out of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was very lovely talking.